千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we delve deeply into the Tao Te Ching by Lao Tzu. So we've already spent quite a few meetings on this. What did we talk about before? Well, as usual, we went through the Chinese characters. We identified the repeating characters, and using that as a guide, we were able to divide it up into 3 sections. Section 1, 2, and 3, a beginning section, the main body of the chapter, the concluding section. And as you can see, the repeating characters have been highlighted. Some of them are shifted left or right in position, so it may not be so obvious that the characters are playing a similar role, but you can see that the distance between those characters are the same. So we got to the end of the chapter. So this is where we ended up. We were able to discuss all the lines in detail. So as I mentioned before, today we will go through a paraphrase of the whole chapter. And we will wrap it up by making sure we all know how the end of the chapter connects to the beginning of the chapter. So we'll do a few slides on the recap. Previously, as you may recall, we discussed the various ways to understand the concept of oneness. The term oneness lends itself to multiple explanations and different ways to understand. What we did was that we talked about oneness as the totality of existence. You may recall. We also talked about oneness in terms of the underlying connection that we all share, that on a fundamental level of existence, you and I are literally one. Living in the material world, oftentimes we see the illusion of separateness, differences, discrimination. But when we delve deep enough into the Tao, we see that we are actually the same. The spiritual lessons that we share, we have that common core. And lastly, we talked about the one as the one path in life. And this is because we see the one everywhere in life, in all different aspects. We often see that the difference of knowing one critical piece of information determines whether or not you can get something done. And one example that we used before is the ubiquitous password credential check. Today, with the internet being so widespread, we use that all the time. That is that valid password that you have for a particular system is the one thing that gets you in there to be able to regain access to all of your information. So using that as an example and the combination lock, we talked about the one thing as the best path for you through life. So the idea is to be able to identify what that best path is. So, we can stick fairly close to the best path for us individually. So there are different ways to express what that one is, to express that oneness. The last bullet point here, you'll see where it says Lao Tzu talks about oneness as the last part of this chapter, which is what we explored last time. Then I also talked about another way to express the right path with a particular formula, which basically says that you have to be committed completely to a course of action, that you have to proceed with the intention, that is, your goals, firmly in mind, and gratitude in your heart. You get those ingredients together, you will naturally start taking positive, productive, proactive actions in life. And you'll be doing that every day. Sustain that over time, it will lead you to mastery of life. So literally, those keywords form CIGAM, or magic in reverse. So that's an easy way to remember the formula to the one path, the one thing that will lead you to life mastery. And I hope that it was helpful. As we continue down that path, there are times when we get stuck. There are times when the task seems too big. There are times when you have trouble feeling gratitude. And so I offer some suggestions previously on how to re-experience gratitude whenever you like, or whenever you need the touch of gratitude. Hopefully, you remember that as well. The metaphor being used is a library in the mind, full of books that you can browse through again and again to relive a favorite memory, which are all about the things to be grateful for in life. So, still on the recap, we then went into the last section of the Tao Te Ching, chapter 39. As I said, this is where Lao Tzu is going through what he feels is the way to attain oneness. So this is the key to life mastery that Lao Tzu is offering to all of us. It begins with a whole bunch of examples, different ways to talk about the practice or the virtue of humility, using different examples like the behavior rulers, like how everything that is high has a basis in the low. So you have to build from the ground up. And it ends with an interesting metaphor about even though jade is highly valued, highly sought after, in the Tao, you wouldn't want to be like jade. You want to be like rocks. So this made it necessary for us to talk about the meaning of that in the Tao. So here's the summary slide on that. Rather than to go through all the different slides, the different attributes once again, I'll just present sort of the Reader's Digest version that the rock embodies the Tao because it doesn't seek to be different, to draw attention. It says nothing. It's part of the world. It's not apart from it. And finally, why is it priceless? Because the rock is versatile and useful. You can use it as a tool. You can use it as building blocks. Human civilization would not be possible if we hadn't learned to work with rocks. So this was from before. And by the time we got done with the final section, the concluding third section, we were able to extract 3 ideas from Lao Tzu on the attainment of oneness. So to recap that, this is the final recap. So remember, number 1 is that oneness is something that you build up gradually. It's a journey. It's something that you have to do every day, that you have to incrementally build up. Number 2, the higher you go in building up to attain oneness, the more humble you must be. And it's true the other way too. That is, unless you possess the requisite level of humility, you can forget about going higher in your attainment. Finally, number 3, no flaunting in the process of attaining oneness. And you can see that this is closely related to the other ones. It's closely related to the whole emphasis on humility. If you are truly humble, you won't feel the need to flaunt, to grab the limelight, etc. So that's it. That's the recap from before. And this will set us up to do the paraphrase. We now always do a paraphrase because it's a way to demonstrate that we understand the meaning of the original. The paraphrase does not need to be exact, like a translation, although I'll be the first to admit most translations out there are not exact, are not rigorous. With the paraphrase, though, we have license to stick closely to the meaning, just not using the words of Lao Tzu exactly. We can use our modern expressions. So here we are. Let's take a look. In the first section of 39, it's all about different aspects of existence attaining oneness. And as you recall from our previous discussions, we very easily understood how that applies to individual lives simply by mapping the different aspects of existence to different aspects of you. You are literally the Tao in a smaller format, human-sized format. You are the Tao, and the Tao is you. With that in mind, here's how the paraphrase can be done. The oneness of the Tao is central to everything. Since ancient times, the sages have observed the difference it makes in all aspects of existence. With oneness, the heaven is clear, the earth is tranquil, the gods are divine, the valley is abundant, the living things thrive, and the rulers become examples for all. Similarly, when you attain oneness, you have clarity, peace, divinity, abundance, and vigor in your life. So you are able to serve as an example for others. All this and more can emerge and manifest through the oneness of the Tao. So with that, we begin to really get an idea for the importance of oneness. One question did come up before about divinity. When I speak of divinity, I'm talking about the spark of divinity within that all human beings possess. It is the basis of your spirituality. It is the basis of your true spiritual strength within. Whatever that is for you, I will point to that and say that is your divinity. So next, we talk about quite the opposite. We talk about what happens when oneness is lacking, and therefore the benefits that we derive from oneness are also lacking. Now that we know how the different aspects of existence map to a human being, we can see exactly what this is talking about. This is speaking about the negative impacts, the negative consequences in life. So with that in mind, here's how the paraphrase can be done. The opposite is just as evident. Without oneness and the benefits it brings, the heaven breaks apart. The earth erupts. The gods vanish. The valley withers. The myriad things go extinct, and the rulers lose authority. Similarly, when you lack oneness, your mind is fragmented, your heart is full of anger, and your spiritual practice is empty. your prosperity withers, your health declines, and your advice and guidance fall on deaf ears. So everything that applies to the different aspects of existence apply equally to you at the personal level. That's what that is showing. So by now, we get reinforcement about how important oneness is, that when we attain it, we get all kinds of benefits in life. When we don't, when we fall short of it, we have all kinds of negative consequences. And this means that it's so important for us to be very specific about what oneness can be for us and how to attain it. That's the reason why we spent so much time previously on specific ways to attain oneness. So the formula that I brought up, that will be one way to do it. And we're about to see what Lao Tzu thinks is the way to attain oneness. That is in the last section, the concluding section, with, as we talked about, its heavy emphasis on being humble. So let's take a look at how the paraphrase can be done. How can we attain oneness? We must build on it from the ground up. The highest level of anything is always built on the lower levels as its foundation. This is why rulers who understand the Tao use lowly terms to refer to themselves. The ultimate honor is no honor. So the higher their attainment, the more humble they become. We must learn from their example in our quest to attain oneness. Rather than to be shiny and decorative like jade, we should be solid and steadfast like rocks. So that's how to express, that's how I would express chapter 39 using only modern language, which has the added benefit of making it more understandable. So now we're at the very last part of our discussion on 39. And the question is the same as always. How do I connect the end of this chapter to the beginning? So this one whole thing is a coherent teaching that makes sense as a great circle. So I call this full circle. The question, again, is to connect the end of this chapter back to the beginning to really get the essence of the Tao. So what did we talk about at the very end? In the final section, we talk about attaining the oneness of the Tao. And we talk about how it is a high-level attainment that must be built up over time. That you start at a lower level and you gradually build your way up. So I hope that this reminds you of our discussion on 38, the chapter right before 39. In that chapter, we also talked about the different steps, the different levels, that you must go through levels to get to the Tao. Like you need to practice low virtue, constantly reminding yourself to be virtuous until you get to high virtue, for instance, and then the virtues become natural. I hope everyone remembers that discussion. So in that chapter 38, we talked about the steps that when you lose the Tao, you get down to virtue. When you lose virtue, you get down to compassion. You get, or benevolence, which is the way that it was expressed in 38. And when you lose that, you get to righteousness. And when even that is gone, you go to etiquette. And the way back up to the Tao is in reverse. That you start practicing etiquette and rituals, but that's just the beginning. That's just Tao 101. Then, we talked about high righteousness as in doing the right things, doing things right, in the right moments, for the right reasons, to get the right results. Then we go from there to benevolence, keep going up, which is compassion, a natural compassion, looking out for the benefits of others. Then we ascend to low virtue, constantly practicing virtues until they become second nature. That's high virtue. And from there, just one step removed from the Tao. So this is talking about the different steps that we take. In this chapter, chapter 39, we also talk about building up higher and higher, starting from a lower level. But there is an additional emphasis in 39. In this process of going higher and higher, the emphasis is humility, that oneness is a quest to be undertaken in the spirit of humility. And by the way that Lao Tzu kept emphasizing using different examples, like rulers building up higher, we can see that it was important for him. So 39, if you look at the lower right-hand corner of my slide, it looks more like this, that we go further up and up toward oneness, and as we attain oneness or get closer to it, we have to increase in the practice of humility. We have to become ever more humble until it is natural for us to be humble. So that's what 39 looks like. A little bit different from 38. It didn't have, in 39, we don't spell out all the different levels, but we're emphasizing the importance of being humble, right? So there is a direct correlation between the height of your attainment and the level of humility required. So this is what's talked about at the very end of 39. Now we're ready to connect it to the beginning. In the beginning, we can see that it's going to be important to be humble as you attain oneness. Why? Because the beginning of the chapter talks about the sky being clear, the earth being tranquil, etc. It's talking about the benefits. The closer you get to oneness, the more you can manifest those benefits in your life. The very last one, if you recall, is that you serve as an example for the world. You serve as an example for the people around you, is what it means at the personal level. What that says is that there's a natural consequence of getting better at the Tao. That is, very naturally, people notice that you are having a much easier time handling the challenges in life. They will turn to you more and more. They will be asking questions more and more. What do you think about that? How did you do that so easily? How were you able to handle it so effortlessly? Can you share with me your secrets? So questions like that will come up more and more. You can tell that you are getting closer to oneness when more and more people have those questions for you. So what happens when people are coming to you for advice all the time? Well, one possibility is that it can get right to your head. It can swell up your head. You begin to believe in the hype that you must be an enlightened being, a spiritual teacher. You subscribe to the hype that perhaps other people flatter you with. So that's why humility is important. When you are in that position, you must be naturally humble to not fall into the trap of arrogance. Arrogance will disconnect you from reality. You will have no idea that you're being arrogant and that what you are thinking is not exactly how reality is, you will be suffering for delusions and have no way to detect that. So there's actually an expression in Mandarin that I want to share with you that's talking all about that. It's a very common expression. The expression sounds like this: 好为人师. So this is the correct and traditional pronunciation in Mandarin. 好为人师, where the first character is actually 好 and not 好, as a beginning students in Mandarin may think. So when you lower the pitch of that character, the meaning changes from good to like. Here's the meaning. So the first character means like. The second character means be. The third character is the character for person, 人. And finally, the last character is the one for teacher. So if you string the literal transcription together, it's not going to make it won't make a whole lot of sense. Like, be, person, teacher, what? No, what it is that you like to be someone's teacher. So there's an apostrophe S, there's an assumed possessive there. Here's what it means. An arrogant person likes playing the role of the teacher because in his mind, it's the way to elevate himself above others. So this is why occasionally you'll see the arrogant person, going on and on about a particular subject for which he likes to consider himself to be the expert. Like, let me tell you all about that. Or, there's something that you don't know. Let me teach it to you. So by being the teacher, he gets to elevate himself. That's an expression of arrogance. So what should it be in the Tao? What would it mean if you have the increasing level of humility, as you see in the graphic here, on your way to attaining oneness? The way it looks in the Tao is a little bit different. It is not, let me teach you something. Rather, it is, let me share what I know with you. Let me see if I can benefit you with what I'm sharing the way that it benefited me. When you are sharing, you are not raising yourself above other people. You are sharing from the same level as everyone else. And that is the crucial difference. So that's how the last part of this chapter, with a big emphasis on humility, connects back to the first part with the benefits and with people starting to listen to you. So when you tell them about the Tao, you want to be very humble. You want to share. So we leave chapter 39 with a larger version of the same graphic that you see here, that oneness is the goal, that we want to attain oneness, and as we do so, we have to increase our humility. Oftentimes, it is very natural. When you look at the real experts in any field of endeavor, you will likely see people who are easygoing and down to earth. You will not see people who try to lord it over you. Those are the people who only pretend true mastery. They are not the real masters. So here's what the summary looks like for today. We started out talking about the end of 49, about being more like the rock. This is the last line from chapter 39. So this is the final concept from 39. I have several suggestions on being more like the rock. Number one, low-key, low profile. To do things in a low-key way, keeping a low profile. So from the end of 39, you can see that while other people may prefer to shine like jade, the Tao cultivator does not require that attention, does not have craving to attract attention. I do see a lot of people who do have that craving. They, for instance, are the ones who are obsessively posting in social media, wanting to get some kind of reaction from the people who follow them. So to be like the rock is to not require that amount of attention from other people. It's a bottomless pit. Number two, quietness, silence. The rock doesn't say anything, so the Tao cultivator, in emulation of that, will use less words, make less noise, and at the same time, work on increasing the meaning that you express, the impact that you have. So less talking, more doing is what this one really says. And then number three, gravitas, steadiness. To be like the rock is to be thoughtful, the reliable anchor that other people can depend on, other people can trust. If you are true to the spirit of the Tao, you can see that 1, 2, and 3 are musts. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.